Hello everybody, my name is Dr. Daniel James Armstrong and I'm going to do a very quick presentation following a prayer that I made 40 months ago being answered by the Lord in what He revealed to me. So I'm going to share it with you. I'm very excited to do so, and it's concerning chapiters. Chapiters, resolving the disparity between given heights of the architectural elements on top of the pillars outside the porch or inside the porch of Solomon's temple. And this is a disparity that exists in all Bibles. So, you may have heard of it already, but 1 Kings 7:16 gives the height of one of these chapiters as 5 cubits, and 2 Kings 25:17 gives the height of the chapter at 3 cubits. Now, 1 Kings is concerning the glorious completion of the temple and the pillars, and 2 Kings 25 is concerning the utter destruction of Solomon's temple. So a chapiter is the topmost architectural member of a column, and this is just what you pull up on Google straight away, and in the top right you can begin to imagine what these chapiters, these elements of a structure look like. But more so today they're called capitals. And for me, this is the Lord. The Lord's in charge of all etymology. You know, etymology isn't really a thing. It's how the Lord ordains words to come together. And here's an example from Nahum. We have at the top of every chapter, we have a capital. So there's kind of a conflation between chapter and capital. And if you look at this Nahum one, there is a striking resemblance in the T to the Google representation of a said chapter. Yes. There are additional features described in 1 Kings at the construction of Solomon's temple about some of the features of these chapters and pillars. And one of them is we get wreaths of chainwork, like we see above Malachi. And then in 18 we'll get a description of pomegranates. And within the chainwork, and I could only find 4 of these chainworks with pomegranates in. There's only 4 of them, but there we go, there is a pomegranate. And in the 19th verse, we'll get a description of lilywork. Now, you get lilywork all over the 1611 Holy Bible, and here is a nice example from a capital vein, and some people may not recognize this as lilywork, but it truly is, and it emanates from the kind of graphical representation of the fleur de lys, which is a symbol of France. But does God reduce any other chapters from 5 to 3? Because, you know, it's irrefutable. It's in His word, and there are a few mainstream interpretations of it, saying that, oh well, God didn't mean that bit of the chapter. But no, God is explicit in His word. Every word is meaningful, and He's described the height as being reduced from 5 to 3 cubits. So I'll bring you now to the 1611 contents page, if you like, and I gazed at this when I first picked up my first 1611 about 14 months ago or thereabouts, and I was puzzled as to why Nahum, the book of Nahum, had 5 represented in its total number of chapters, when everyone knows that it's got 3. It's got 3 chapters in Nahum. And I know that the Lord's work is perfect. He'd already showed me that this book was perfect. And let's face it, he'd be a liar if his words weren't pure words, and there wasn't a book of the Lord that he refers to. So I just said it to the Lord. I said, Lord, I'd love you to show me the solution to this one. And 40 months on, he shows me. And it's concerning the chapiters. And here it is again. And the reason I've pulled it up again, this is the Nahum capital for the first chapter. And for me, it's inescapable that Nahum chapter has this classic representation of a chapiter. which is in contrast to Habakkuk, which starts with the same letter but uses a different factotum. So, in conclusion, it's a brief one. The chapiter heights were different between temple construction and destruction. They were different. And God influences, but he's the author of the whole creation, and we see examples of him changing objects in this physical realm, like water into wine, and there are other examples that I can't bring off the top of my head. But this is the power of the Lord, and one can easily say that the abominations that the Lord had to witness through the temple standing, it eroded the glory of the temple to the point at which the Lord had to bring it down. And the second point that I wish to make is that 1611 artwork and temple the 1611 artwork and temple reference one another, and both are divine. And the 1611 chapter discrepancy, where Nahum gets 5 but is reduced to 3 later on, it's matched in narrative to the chapter discrepancy in Kings, because the reduction in the brass chapter happens at the point of its destruction, and Nahum describes the prophecy of the destruction of Nineveh. So at the point at which something of significance is destroyed, an element can be reduced. And to go further, there is a balancing out in that contents page where the number of acts, the number of chapters of acts is given as 26, but it's actually added to in 28. Well, what happens a couple of chapters, one could say, after the conclusion of the writings in Acts, is that Jerusalem got utterly destroyed in 70 AD, something that people don't acknowledge in contemporary mainstream Christian teachings. The final point is that I conceive of the Lord using this 1611 anomaly at this time to draw our attention to the fact that many of us, we all acknowledge that we're in end times, right? And in end times, if we follow that pattern of destruction, chapters get reduced. So we can apply this to the King James Holy Bible. The mainstay, the majority are going from the King James Version, a version of the definitive, and that has 173 chapters reduced. It has the Apocrypha taken out. And I think that this is comparable to the erosion of 2 cubits worth of the pillar height, the chapiter height in Solomon's temple. And I think it's a call for all of us who haven't yet picked up that holy word, who haven't sorted out. There is a book there. There is a book there. And it's the 1611 artwork and contents and summaries and calendars, and everything in that is the book of the Lord. And I implore you all to buy it. kjbm.org or selling carry size. So much love to all.